mayor of New York City, personal attorney for President Trump, Rudy Giuliani. Rudy, it's great to see you once again this morning. Thank you so much for being with me.
Very nice to be with you, Maria. Yes, we're going to argue the case in Pennsylvania today.
Go ahead. Yep, tell me about that.
I said we're going to argue the case in Pennsylvania today. It's really a preliminary motion. It's a motion to dismiss the case on technical legal grounds. That case is a case that, you know, it's connected to the other 8 or 9, and the case shows, and we're prepared to call witnesses to demonstrate that somewhere around 700,000 ballots were counted surreptitiously. They were counted in secret. The Republican watchers, which is what they're called in Pennsylvania, were literally kept in corrals. They were then locked out. Some of them were actually roughed up a little bit in the Philadelphia part, not the Pittsburgh part. But the total number now is, the exact number is 688,770. We'll probably get to 700,000 by the time we finish the hearing. That'll be on Thursday. But today is to really argue the legal part of the case. And frankly, this is a case that we would like to see get to the Supreme Court. So, you know, we're prepared in some of these cases to lose and to appeal and to get it to the Supreme Court. You might remember in Bush v. Gore, the Bush campaign lost in the state of Florida because it was a Democratic court, 5-2 if I recall correctly. So you're not going to win every one of these. I don't want to say it's because it's a Democrat judge or whatever. Some of them are just as fair as anybody. But in some cases, you win. In some cases, you lose. Most important thing is, this will be now our first established vehicle on our way to the Supreme Court. Or I should say exactly a second. The one in Michigan, even though the certification went ahead, that case is also another vehicle to go to the Supreme Court. So now we have 2. Shortly we'll have Wisconsin and soon Georgia. And then we'll have 3 more right after that. But the ones I just mentioned to you are already drafted and ready to go.
And what are you finding so far? What do you think went on here? Because when we spoke on Sunday, we talked about the software made by Smartmatic that was changing votes from Trump to Biden.
Yeah, but the core of the case, let's call it the meat of the case, and the one that's common really in 10 cities, of which we're probably going to sue in at least 8 or 9 of them, is that they stopped Republican watchers, inspectors, observers, they have different names in different states, to perform the actually vital function of observing the opening of the mail ballot. If you don't observe the opening of the mail ballot, it is lost forever, because the only thing that identifies it is a signature on the outer envelope. When you certify that signature, you separate the outer envelope from the ballot. The ballot's anonymous. You can never connect them again. So even if we go back and we find some of the signatures that are wrong or phony ones or whatever, we won't be able to link it to a ballot. So the only remedy the court has is to just cancel out those votes, which they've done in Pennsylvania in the Ross case. So Pennsylvania has, in fact, reversed an election based on absentee irregularities. There's no bigger absentee irregularity than failure to observe the ballot. Never happened before. I never remember, and I've been in absentee lawsuits, I never remember one side excluding the other and thinking they get away with it. It's totally absurd. People probably don't understand these ballot countings well enough to realize what a tremendous deprivation of rights this is. We have no idea if those 670,000 ballots were put in by Mickey Mouse or Biden's cousin or by a Democratic office holder or by some criminal who got paid money to produce 10,000. There are machines that can get you signatures on 100,000 ballots in a half hour. And that's possibly what happened in Michigan when they brought the 100,000 ballots in the middle of the night. This is a horrendous fraud. It spans the country. It is isolated to Democrat cities. They were very smart to do it in cities that, it's like the Old West, cities they control, where they control the workers. We have a worker testifying for us in Detroit that says she was taught by the city how to cheat. They control the workers. They control, to some extent, law enforcement. We had people being threatened if they got any closer with arrest, even though they had a court order. Corey Lewandowski was one of them. And they control, unfortunately, the courts. So we got to get up out of that into the Supreme Court realm.
Well, I mean, who's to stop?
So that was Rudy Giuliani this morning on Fox Business, basically saying that the reason Donald Trump and he and the Trump legal team, Sidney, Powell, and all the others are losing their court cases is that they're doing so on purpose. They're bringing forward cases so they can lose them, so they can move them up the court chain to the Supreme Court, where hopefully the 6-3 conservative majority on the Supreme Court will give the election to Donald Trump, basically saying that they want 6 people to overrule the will of 160 million American voters that, when all was said and done, chose Joe Biden over Donald Trump, both in the Electoral College and by more than 5 million votes, maybe even 6 million votes in the popular vote. That's what's happening here. They can spin it any other way, but what they're trying to do is steal the election from the American people. They've had nothing. There's nothing. The reason they're losing these court cases, they're not losing them on purpose. They're not bringing them forward to lose, to play 3 or 4 or 5 dimensional chess. They're losing them because they have nothing. We've talked about this on this channel, that when you go on Fox News or Fox Business or OAN or Newsmax or just spouting off on Twitter or Facebook, you can sort of say whatever you want. You can claim you have all this evidence, but when you get into a court, it's put up or shut up time. Can you put up any evidence? If not, the judge is going to throw out your case. And if you lie to a judge, it's very different than lying to Lou Dobbs or Maria Bartiromo or Sean Hannity or whatever. There are more consequences to the lawyers themselves and to, Trump and Giuliani and all the rest. And so they're less willing to do so. I'm very skeptical that, 1, the Supreme Court would even hear the full extent of the cases, and 2, that they would actually rule in favor of what Trump and Giuliani want. I get they have a conservative majority, but what they're effectively asking is a total override of state election law. And I just don't see that happening. To some degree, a lot of the concerns have already been dealt with. For instance, the whole concern in Pennsylvania was the extension of the vote deadline. And some ballots were accepted after Election Day. They were marked before, but accepted after. But those votes were minuscule in the grand count, and they were preemptively set aside so that the election results were given without those ballots being counted. So whether they were all for Biden or all for Trump or a mixture of the two, it didn't matter because those ballots weren't included in the original pile. And so effectively, we're not talking about 500 votes in Florida in 2000, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of votes across multiple swing states that Trump needs to flip. You have to prove that ballots are invalid on such a mass scale in so many key states that the Supreme Court would have to throw out thousands of them. The Supreme Court might lean conservative, but there hasn't necessarily been an indication that they will practice a coup on this scale. Again, as I've noted, this right now is a soft coup attempt by Trump and Giuliani and company. I don't want to downplay that. But remember that first and foremost, this is a grift. And that if you've donated to the Trump Legal Defense Fund for this court challenge to save his presidency, and you gave less than $8,000, the entirety of your donation went to the Trump campaign and RNC to retire campaign debts. They're grifting the most loyal Trump supporters. That's what this is all about. No one wants to say to the Trump supporters that this is over because they'll be angry, and no one wants to pass up an opportunity to milk those people of their last few hundos, and that's why this is happening right now. Trump will not be president in a few weeks, and Joe Biden will be. You can be happy about that or sad about that, but that's the reality. Get used to it.